Hello, this is a recording of the workshop supporting our children in literacy geared towards geared towards families and caregivers that have students in grades 3 through 5. Just a bit about me. I'm Shannon Finley. I'm the K through 5 ELA curriculum coordinator for the Walpole Public Schools. Prior to joining Walpole 3 years ago, I worked in the Dedham Public Schools as an instructional coach, a literacy specialist, and a classroom teacher in grades 1, 3, and 4. But most importantly, I want you to know that I'm you. I have a son, Harrison, who's 8 and in 3rd grade, and I have a daughter, Kyle, who is in 1st grade. And so I know what it's like to be trying to teach our kids at home. And even with a background in education, it is really challenging. I feel your struggles and frustrations, and there have been days when I have felt like an absolute failure. So by no means am I an expert in teaching through a pandemic. I don't think any of us are. But what I hope is that I share a few ideas and strategies that you might give a go at home to make this experience even just a little bit easier. I always keep in mind that all children are uniquely amazing and on their own literacy journey. So some of these strategies may work with one child and not with another. They may work on Tuesday, but not on Wednesday. And so just keeping in mind being flexible and patient with ourselves and our children and giving something a go, maybe more than just one time. So my goal is for you is that you walk away with one new idea, at least one new idea or strategy to try. Hopefully, I'm going to show some books or series that might excite and motivate your student or your child if that is something that is a challenge. And most importantly, just some reassurance that you're doing the right thing, you're on the right track, and you're doing what's best for your child. So the first thing that I think about is letting them, meaning your children, find a good spot. I think we all maybe thought maybe too much about where the perfect spot for our child to work while they're at home would be. And for some kids, what we think is the perfect spot and what they think is the perfect spot are not necessarily the same thing. So something I work on with teachers in classrooms is getting kids to really think about, this is an example, this poster of a perfect reading spot. And so really getting them to try to think about the best environment for themselves as a learner, thinking about lighting. Is it bright? Do I like it bright or dim? Sound. Do I like a little noise? Do I like to listen to some background music, or do I need it really quiet? Thinking about seating, and then thinking about, are we laying down? Are we upright? And depending on the assignment or the activity, that might change. And so I did create desk spaces for my students, my kids at home, and they never sit there. I feel like Kyle's always choosing this oversized chair that we have, and Harrison likes to be sprawled out on the ground doing his. My second tip is just to really love, or at least pretend to love, books. I think for all ages of kids, if we can show and model that we're interested in reading and that books are a place for escape, a place for enjoyment, our kids will really feed off of that. Even though most of your children are probably reading the words, I think it's still really important to spend some time reading to them and letting them hear authentic reading aloud. Reading with them, maybe sharing parts of a book if there's characters, each taking a character in the book or sharing the page, listening to them read if they're passionate about reading out loud to you. Sometimes readers need an audience or writers need an audience for their stories. So being that audience for your child if you can. And then audiobooks, we're all so busy trying to juggle so many things. And so putting a book on tape or an audiobook, there are lots of options out there for that to be supportive for kids to be listening to audiobooks, which is really beneficial for them. And then trying to balance screen time with time away from the screen, but there are a lot of online books and apps to engage in. Just a plug for the Walpole Public Library, it is open. A lot of people don't know that. You do not need an appointment anymore. If that's something you feel comfortable and safe doing, you can go to the library. If that's not something you're feeling comfortable and safe doing, you could call the library and you could ask them to put some books on hold for you, and they'll put them out in the garden and you can go pick them up that way. A neighborhood book swap, or if you're safely social distancing with a bubble of families or certain families, having the kids swap books can be a really great way to invigorate and bring some life very inexpensively, if not free, to have some new books in the home. And if you are looking to purchase books, Park Street Books, their top floor is all discounted books, and Savers is one of my favorite spots to get some really great books very inexpensively. Titles, here are a bunch of titles. I think in third, fourth, and fifth grade, most kids kind of know what type of book they like to read. So it's kind of hard for me to put out some titles that everybody's going to love. But I do know that kids are really graphic these days, whether it's a graphic novel or just a page in a book that has a lot of graphic, not necessarily a picture book. But these are some examples of what I mean. If you check out any of these books, the font's a little bit bigger. It's almost like a type print font, and there's either drawings or sketches or pictures within the page. A lot of 3, 4, and 5 students tell me there's too many words on the page. The book's too big. I don't want to read it. And so that type of book, if your child is not super excited to read, might be some titles to check out there. The Scholastic Branches series is excellent in terms of offering a lot of picture support. Again, if the words on the page is something that turns your child off. And then just some additional series that are out there that students are really loving these days. I also included a visual list of series books. I think if we can get kids into a series, it's awesome because they know their next book and we know what book to maybe find for them. So series is something great to think about. And then based off of the workshop, people were looking for even more titles of books. And so I've got an exhausted list, an extensive list, not necessarily exhausted, but an extensive list of books that you could check out if you're looking, again, to have some titles ready to go. So when you call the library, you can ask if they have those available. My third tip is just to really celebrate reading and writing choices. In school, we're really trying to shift the model to allow students more choice in regard to what they're reading and what they're writing in terms of topic. And sometimes that can be really hard in school and at home. And so some of the things sometimes we want to say are like, why are you reading Diary of a Wimpy Kid or Dog Man again? Go pick a different book, right? We almost like take the book that they want to read and love away from them to push them into a book that maybe they're not so excited about. Some families tell me that, and caregivers tell me that why are they reading graphic novels? It's not a real book. I want them to read a real book. Or they might say, we might say without meaning to, why are you writing about that? Why don't you write about this? And so some things, some reasons why maybe to take pause before saying those things is I firmly believe that if we can offer choice in anything, even if it's like, do you want to read this book or that book? Engagement and motivation, research shows go skyrockets, right? If we can offer some choice around anything, really. Rereading, even though we may be sick of seeing those books, rereading really does build confidence in kids in terms of, being comfortable with the book and seeing themselves as a reader. Their fluency will improve the more they reread something, as well as their understanding and the comprehension of the books. I tell them to look for something new every time you reread that book. Graphic novels are amazing, actually, especially for kids where books are not their favorite pastime. And so they actually require a lot of higher level reading skills, such as inferring and synthesizing, because there's so little support with the text. And again, just that anytime we can give them choice, motivation and engagement is going to go up. My fourth tip that I work on with teachers as well in school and hoping to offer this suggestion to you is to think about coaching instead of correcting, thinking about our language around correcting mistakes, or when our students and our children ask us something, how can we coach them to be more independent rather than just swoop in and save them, and really celebrating the approximations that they make when we do that. So for example, even though most of your students, most of your children can probably are reading the words, they will be hopefully still coming to words that they don't know, because that builds vocabulary and that builds their schema of words. And so if they say, like, what does this word say? Something that we might suggest instead of just reading it for them might be to read through the whole word and look at all the parts of the word. We do a lot of work around the analysis of words in 3, 4, and 5. And so seeing if they can read through the whole word and find a word part. We also suggest thinking about what's happening in the story and then looking at the word. And does that make sense? What else might you try? And then thinking about syllables. This is a little bit teachery, but if they can find the syllables in a word and break the word up into syllables, or we might say chunks, word parts again that they know, that can help them decode and read the word. Same goes for spelling. We're always being asked, how do you spell this? How do you spell this? Kids want to be right. And sometimes it's easier and quicker just to tell them how to spell the word. But what we really try in K2 to get them to do is say the word slowly and stretch out the sounds, write the sounds you hear. So that strategy can still work with our 3 through 5 kids. And then again, trying to connect to syllables. So a word is only as challenging as its syllables, right? So if I can break up a big word into syllables and spell each syllable, then I can write down a more challenging word correctly. So for example, the word athlete has 2 syllables, athlete, and I would instruct kids write down spell the first syllable, ath, and then spell the second syllable, leet, and then you have your word. A little bit teachery, but might help. And then finally, I'm trying to encourage, teachers as well as families to conversate instead of interrogate, meaning like have a conversation about books, come from a place of genuine curiosity rather than testing and interrogating whether or not they understood the book, whether or not they did their reading, which I know can be a challenge. But sometimes we're quick to say, like, there's no way you read that book in 5 minutes. Go back and reread it, or tell me everything then. Fine, tell me everything you remember in that book, right? And so instead, we might give a try. Wow, you finished that book so quickly. Tell me about your favorite part, or tell me about something that surprised you, right? Like trying to spin it and come from a place of genuine curiosity. If they can't tell us their favorite part, or they can't tell us something that surprised them, then we might say, well, did you read the book? Maybe you did read the book too quickly. Maybe you want to go back. I'm sure this book is really amazing. You might want to give it another go, right? So we can kind of use that to then interrogate a little bit more. And so really that's it. I just wanted to try to give a couple of practical tips that we work on in school and that we could try to support our students with at home. My email is here. If you think of anything else or you have any additional questions, I'd love to hear from you. Don't be afraid to shoot me an email. And I hope soon we'll see each other together in schools. Bye.